actually forgives. And I am making this post today based on an experience I had in dealing with a friend of mine. We have been close friends for years, for over 10 years, and I discovered that at a point, the friendship became a burden. And one thing that I know that every one of us have to struggle with at a point in time is to forgive someone who we either truly loved or who had been a friend for a very long time, and suddenly there is an offense and we find it extremely hard to forgive. And I discovered that I'd had series of events, but there was one I had quite lately that really shook me to the core, that even when I wasn't with the person for a while, the pain kept lingering. And I discovered that until I decided to forgive, that was when I felt the burden lifted. Most times, forgiveness could be tough, especially when it comes from someone we love so deeply. And when people hate you, it's easier to become a landlord living in their heads. But then when you're the one having to forgive other persons, they become the landlords in your mind. The pain, the thoughts are heavy, the thoughts are difficult to let go of. And it gives you sleepless nights. But I discovered that as individuals first, as humans first, when we decide to forgive, when we decide to let go of that pain, when we decide to forgive those who were the source of a pain to us at a point in our lives, it has a way of making us feel relieved. It has a way of making us move on in life. Sometimes we may not be friends again. Sometimes we may have to move on without the person in our lives. But the truth is, until you have truly forgiven the person from your heart, that's when you can move on without having any difficulty. The close friend of mine, we had been friends for quite a long time, and I discovered that as we moved on over the years, we had shared so many secrets, we had shared so many joyous moments. We could talk on for hours, and what to say was not hard to come by. And I discovered that even when we both got married and we were in different locations, whenever we met, we had a way of compensating for the lost time. And suddenly I began to discover that the relationship was one-sided. You know, sometimes it's easier to call someone a friend, but then when you begin to have a frequent and visible contact over time, it begins to test the foundation of the friendship. And I discovered that at the point I seemed to be tolerating many of her excesses. I also had my excess, that without doubt I had my own excesses, but then I swallowed up her excesses. I tried to make out excuses for them. We are all humans and we have our shortcomings. But I discovered that my own excesses were not tolerated. She made an unpleasant scene about it, and I kept chewing it up. I kept trying to see how I was going to cope with it. I was being careful in my response because at some point I had been of help to her, and at some other point she had also been of help to me. So it was a mutual friendship. So sometimes when I wanted to really get angry and say what is in my mind the way it is, I began to weigh the number of years we had been friends for a while, and I would just let it go by. But I discovered that the times when I showed my own bad excesses, she didn't tolerate it at all. She created a scene about it. She made me feel so stupid, if I would describe it like that. But then, as time went on, I discovered that she was beginning to cut a piece of me each passing day. The more I tried to endure and tolerate her, the more edgy and quick I discovered that I was becoming in getting angry. It became obvious to me that this was not really a good friendship. This was not a mutual friendship. It was becoming more like one person benefiting when the condition favors her, and when it doesn't favor her, the other person has to bear the whole grunt. But then a time came when I decided I was going to address it. I told myself I wasn't going to tolerate this anymore. If this friendship was going to go on, let it go on, and both sides are happy. Both sides are not feeling used. And I decided to address it once and for all. And shockingly for me, it brought out the other side of her I never knew existed. She used hurtful words that pierced deep into my soul, and because I'd had some experience about the effect of words, which I have on my website. I wrote so many blog posts on the effect your words could have on people, that even when you say sorry, it doesn't really wipe away the pain. So it made me very careful. When I'm angry, I try not to say anything then till I compose myself. But then when we had an issue, she began to use hurtful words. You're going to reap what you're going to sow. And made words that if someone told me she was going to make such kind of comment, I could almost defend her that she cannot do that. But here was I face to face with her using words that I never knew would come forth from her mouth. It took me months to forgive. I won't tell you that because I'm a Christian, I just woke up one morning and said, okay, I'm going to forgive you today. No, it took me months to forgive. It took me time to pray and ask God to please help me to forgive this lady, because we had been friends for long. So forgiving was hard for me because of the time we had spent together, because of the stories, the experiences, the joys, the tears, because of the secrets we had shared together. When this thing occurred, when those words began to spew out of her mouth, it hit me deep within because I least expected it. But then it now revealed to me that sometimes friendship only goes on if the differences are not being addressed. If one person keeps tolerating it, but then when it's mutual, both persons are benefiting, it's better off and easier to enjoy. And I discovered that some will hate you, some will love you. Loving you or hating you is both in your favor. But then when you decide to begin to hate other persons because of a pain you've had in your heart over the years, it does not pay. For me, even when I had traveled thousands of miles away from her, she kept haunting me in my head. She wasn't there with me. We weren't in contact like before. We weren't talking like before. But then the thoughts of the things that had flown through, the words that had been spoken, were flowing in my head, were repeatedly playing down in my head. And I told myself, you have to forgive. And to you out there who are watching, I wouldn't know who would have offended you so deeply that you may have uttered words like, I can never forgive her, or I can never forgive him. The truth is, it's not the person who you are to forgive that is suffering. It is you who needs to forgive that feels the pain. And until you let go of the pain, until you decide to wake up one morning and tell yourself, okay, I'm going to forgive this person, that's when you find yourself beginning to enjoy life better. When you live in peace with other people, you live happily within yourself. Never feel bad when old friends suddenly become new enemies. Not enemies of you beginning to wish them bad, but then you may not be friends like before. They are just being tired sometimes of pretending to be friends. For me, I would see it as though that she had been tired of pretending to be a friend. For me, I couldn't tolerate anymore, and I decided, okay, let's address this in once and for all. I am not perfect, you are not perfect, but at this point, we need to weigh things. And I discovered that until I had forgiven her from my heart, the pain kept resurfacing in my mind every passing day. And it actually pays to live in peace with others. When your heart, forgive the person, let go of the pain. Sometimes you may move on without the person, but the truth is, in all, forgive. No matter the gravity of what they've done, no matter how long or how deep the pain lingered in your heart, it actually pays to forgive. It may be difficult, it may be hard. Sometimes you may need to pray to ask God to help you to really forgive. But then it pays to forgive. No matter how long, no matter how hard, no matter how difficult it may be, the truth is, in life, we'll either make foes, we'll either make enemies, or we'll either have friends. It cannot be avoided in life. Tomorrow I may be the one to offend you. I don't intend to, and I apologize ahead of time. Tomorrow it may be somebody you least expect, somebody you've held in high esteem in your heart. But then when the offense comes, what do? When the hurt comes, when it lingers deep within your heart, what's your decision? The truth is, offenses cannot be avoided. And who offends us, we cannot decide. But the truth is, whether we are offended and whatever the offense is, whether we are at fault or they are at fault, the truth is, to forgive pays. And the issue is not with the person who offended you. The issue is with how you treat them. The truth is, in the story I just talked about, my friend who we had issues about, that really hurt me, I forgave her and moved on. And when an occasion came where she had some challenges and needed help, I sent some money. I did the best I could as a human being, as a Christian, as someone who doesn't wish her bad. But then, we are not as close as we were before, but deep down within my heart, I wish her God's best. I pray for her, but then that's the issue with forgiving and moving on without the pain. Yes, the thing may flow through in your mind. Sometimes it could replay, the incidents may replay in your mind, but then the pain that it came with will not replay in your mind because you had forgiven and moved on. And the truth is, if each and every one of us will learn to forgive those who offend us, it will help us live each day better than yesterday. For me as a person, I have discovered that when I bear grudges in my heart, when I have an ill feeling towards someone because of something they had done wrong, it bears a weight on me. It holds me down. It becomes too heavy to bear. And until I decide to forgive and move on, that's when I find myself living on well. So our friends most times either bring the best in us and sometimes the worst out of us. For me, I discovered that learning to hold and control the words I speak in the height of anger has helped a lot. I had a lady who was going on with a coaching session with me, and a very close friend of hers kept sending very hurtful words, because I was privileged to see some of the messages that the person sent to her, and sent her messages that even when I saw it, I knew it was hard to forgive. But I told her, don't reply. Don't give her an occasion to hold something against you. Yes, she has said words that hurt you deeply. Don't retaliate back with those words. And as the months rolled by, the person who had sent those words still came back to her and began to tender some apology. And I spoke to her and I told her, because you didn't pay her back with those words that she gave to you, it sowed a seed in her. And she began to wonder why you could forgive without using hurtful words. The truth is, for every one of us, if we have people who have offended us, people who became a source of pain at a point in our lives, don't allow bitterness or resentment to grow deep within your heart. Don't allow anything to hold you down or prevent you from moving on and forgiving them from the depth of your heart. The truth is, as long as we are alive on this earth, offenses will come. People will offend us, those we least expect, those who we respect, those who have been friends for quite a long time in our lives will become a source of offense at a point in time. But until we forgive them without grudges, without holding anything in our heart, the truth is, it is better to forgive. It is better to let go of the pain and move on. Don't have an ill feeling. Don't wish them bad. Leave revenge. Sometimes we try to, I'm going to pay her back in the same coin. No. Let's learn to forgive and never pay back evil with evil. Never pay back evil with evil. Learn to forgive. Learn to move on without holding anybody in your heart. Thanks for all who could join up live to watch. Thanks, William Wakozo. Thanks, Ade Adewumi. Thanks for all those who I couldn't mention your name. I'm sincerely grateful.